We're Max and Justin,
Max is a therapist,
and Justin has opinions.
and together we unpack relationships, trauma, family.
And everything people think they understand, but usually don't.
Welcome to the conversation you didn't know you needed. Here we are again, episode 3. Call your therapist.
Exciting stuff.
Today we are talking about the difference between what's uncomfortable and what's unsafe.
I can't wait. The reason that we're talking about it actually is because we were watching the reunion. Is it called a reunion?
We were watching The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, the reunion,
Yes.
and I believe Erica Jane might have said something about, like, you need to be specific.
Are
on
you
what's...
uncomfortable or are you unsafe?
Yes, there is actually a difference, and I think that people are missing a lot of marks whenever they are trying to describe an experience they went through by either saying I was uncomfortable or I was unsafe. And so,
Well, if we're being honest about the reality, I think most people believe they're currently unsafe. There's a lot of, in the sense of like, people have a hard time handling things these days. At least that's my opinion.
I love how also you lit up whenever she said this at the reunion, and you were like, we have to talk about this. And I think I know why, because you've actually described the differences. And if I'm right, from the non-clinical side, to be unsafe, you have to be given a reason for your safety to be in jeopardy. To be uncomfortable is not to be unsafe, basically.
Yes. And that's why, like, if we can kind of start at the beginning in my mind, the reason that in your language I lit up, but I was so excited that somebody said that on television was primarily because I've been a therapist for a decade now, which is kind of wild, by the way. And in that decade, even in the past 10 years, I've seen a ton shift. One of the things that I do within my practice is I speak at high schools. And so I've been interacting with high schoolers for a really long time now. And I actually used to be a substitute teacher within high schools while I was getting my initial graduate degree for my master's program. So been around the teens, and there is sort of this like shift that's taken place. And you hear a lot about it. Like, I've literally read a New York Times article about it. Parents talk about it. New employers talk about this when I'm speaking with them. And it's this idea that people don't seem to know how to handle difficulty the way that we would want them to be able to handle difficulty. They don't seem to be very resilient. And almost everything seems to make them uncomfortable. So huge generalizations, but this topic comes up all the time.
Would you say that our society is becoming very spoiled?
I think it is spoiled, yes. And if I can be mildly historical for just a second, because I love history.
Yeah.
Countries and large nations follow a pattern. So they have the initial pattern where they know what they want, they have values and clarity, and they're like pushing into those things and often conquering and doing some things that we've talked about in general history class where it's not everyone's favorite. But that's what happens. They're all kind of cohesive in their mentality of, we want to build something epic. Fair? And then they build something epic. And then they stop surviving and they start to thrive. And once they start thriving, they have most of what they need, and they like having most of what they need. And at that point, if we want to use the word spoiled, they become spoiled. I mean, we grew up in one of the most thriving nations in human history. And so it's not that surprising that we don't really know how to handle a lot, but we are also simultaneously the most stress-averse culture to ever exist.
So basically our culture is just like we want our cake and to eat it too. That phrase. I know some people hate that phrase, but I mean,
I like it.
Once we achieved one thing, we were like, what else can we get out of this? Let's see what else we can do. There's something wonderful about progressing as a society, but at the same time, I think we lose the ability to be grateful for where we came from.
Well, and we forget that all that progress came through stress, right? So literally all development takes place in stress. We tear our muscles apart to rebuild them, and we push through hard conversations to grow in relationship.
Something very parallel to the discomfort with Unsafe that you've said before, that I love that I think you should share is the difference between stress and anxiety. Everyone throws around those two words as if they're the same thing, just like I'm uncomfortable and I'm unsafe.
Yes.
Can you also describe the differences between stress and anxiety?
Yes, I can. Okay, so simplest way to boil it down is as follows. Stress is being at or beyond your current capacity to handle something, period. So that can be in any context of life. Good stress and bad stress exists. Healthy and unhealthy stress is probably better terminology. If you want to be really clinical, it's eustress and de-stress. And so when it's good or healthy, it's for a specified period of time with personal buy-in and some sort of end in sight. Like when you're lifting weights, you put something on your back heavy and you're lifting it up and down, but you do know when you're going to put it down.
It's intentional.
It's intentional and it's with purpose and clarity. When it's unhealthy stress, it's at the point where it's just it's a heavy weight on your back indefinitely, right? And so stress isn't technically bad. It just gets put in a category where it can become very unhealthy.
I like the phrase necessary stress because once you know what stresses are necessary, and then you realize, wait, some of these stresses are of my choosing, and I can, kind of fine tune the way that I am stressed out.
Yeah.
Because there are just things that you can't avoid in life that are going to stress you out.
Even if people try desperately to avoid them.
Even if they're trying to avoid them.
Well, like going back to the idea. So then if it's necessary stress, it can be healthy and helpful and good and developmental.
Yeah, you can use it as a tool to improve yourself and better your life.
So anxiety and stress, as you were mentioning earlier, are not synonyms.
No.
They're not the same thing. So anxiety is the body's response to threat, physiologically.
So, for example, if I've been in a lot of airports, I think a lot of people have been around these like heavy, crowded spaces where people are forced to wait in line. There are people who don't handle those situations very well. There are people who yell at staff thinking that like it's the Delta employee's fault for all of this. And so they end up projecting all of those like high, tense emotions that they're feeling, whether it's an emotion or a bodily response. I don't know how you would describe stress in those situations, but how, like, I don't know, what would you...
I mean, we do all sorts of fun stuff when we are at or beyond our capacity to handle something. But the reason that it becomes really important to know the difference is because anxiety is the physiological response to threat. That means anxiety in and of itself is not it's not a disorder in and of itself. It's not just this issue. It's when we are threatened, we have a natural physiological response to something dangerous.
So
Fair?
waiting in line at the airport
Well,
could be...
It can be felt that way, right? Like if we're really looking at the reason why it's important to understand the whole thriving culture history lesson is because when you're not surviving anymore and you get used to a thriving context, a lot of things become threatening that didn't used to be.
Yeah.
But if you're like surviving a bear chasing you, then the fact that you got mud on your clothes or the fact that it's cold or the fact that it's uncomfortable is not that big a deal. The big deal is surviving the bear. We just aren't surviving very many bears anymore. Now, that's not to disregard the fact that people go through very difficult things. I am one of them.
When your safety is in question, yes, that is a form of discomfort. But
Yeah.
it is uncomfortable. What would you say to the people who like to prove themselves right all the time and say, like, well, if I'm not safe, then I'm uncomfortable?
Yes. Whenever you're unsafe, you're uncomfortable. But whenever you're uncomfortable, that does not mean that you're unsafe.
Thank you.
They don't
ladies
go
and
both
gentlemen.
ways.
This is why we hire him.
They do not go both ways. And so the reason this becomes so important is it's not some kind of like soapbox to stand on top of and yell at everybody for being so uncomfortable. It feels more like it's very important. A housewife in Beverly Hills is talking about it, right? There's a frustration around the idea and experience that so many people are having that it seems that very few people can handle their uncomfortability anymore without feeling way beyond their capacity and really threatened.
Well, the reason why this stood out is because the point that she was trying to make on the show was that it is very crucial to know the difference between those two, because the consequences of using those words could be very severe depending on the context and the circumstance that you're in. Because there are people who, in their jobs, I love how we both worked for hotels, but there was a time that I worked for someone, a new manager came in, and they just, for some reason, decided they didn't like me. And it was the first time I've ever like not been liked, or that I had to handle a situation at the workplace or in the workplace that I felt like, oh my gosh, this person is out to get me. And someone was trying to help coach me in writing a letter to higher management. And they were saying the words that you use are very important. Yeah. Don't say you were uncomfortable, say you were unsafe. But I'm like, you're coaching me to say this so that I can get something out of this and it doesn't feel right. Because I didn't feel unsafe. I didn't think that this person was going to harm me. I just felt uncomfortable at work because of the way I was being treated. So I think it's just always important to know the differences and the definitions of words that sound like they could be synonymous, but the outcome and the consequences could be, a make or break situation for a lot of really wrongful things.
Well, and it also, what comes into play very quickly is, dependent on the words you're using, who holds responsibility in whatever the issue is made clear. If you're uncomfortable, if you're just at a point, even let's say you're stressed, you're beyond your capacity right now, then it's very important that you take personal responsibility and you actually figure out how to shift and find a context that's comfortable. Change your surroundings, deal with the difficulty, move through the conflict, push into stress, because those are all the ways that you are actually going to change, develop, and grow.
Well, you're talking about internally.
Yes.
People need to do the work themselves and stick to what they know is right versus what's wrong.
If they're unsafe, however, then the person or context that is making them unsafe, that is unsafe, also needs to be addressed. Are they still responsible? Sure. But that language and relationship becomes very, very, very important.
Yeah. Words do hold weight. I mean, that's going to be the same for the rest of time. No matter what society we live in, words will be able to, have power over the way something is handled. And I think people are learning that, though, and they're taking advantage of that system.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, if I use this word, I can get ahead, or I can really put that person in the ground if I say that I was unsafe.
Well, and I think even in your example with the management situation, somebody was coaching you poorly, but there is like some coaching going on in that, which happens for a lot of people. I think even more commonly, people really do feel so overwhelmed because there isn't a lot of resilience and they haven't learned to push through a lot yet, that they really do feel unsafe. Like their body's reacting to the threat of a potential disagreement the same way it would react to violence.
Yes, when you go down that list of like, I could lose my job. If I lose my job, I could lose my roof over my head. I could lose this. You start spiraling, and then you do feel like, oh, I do need to use the word that carries the most weight, even if it's not truthful.
Sure.
And that's awful.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder, I guess like part of the curiosity in my brain is, I wonder if people really, I wonder how much of this is like on purpose,
Right. That's why it's like you question people's honesty and integrity and their character whenever you hear these words now, because they're so popular. They've become very popular to use in certain settings that now when I see it on social media, when someone's on TikTok telling their story, I'm just like, I don't know if I believe half of them, because you're like using these key words, these clickbait words that is going to get that person in trouble, or it's going to make someone give you what you want, which is probably pity and attention, and you just want something from your audience. The more pitiful and sad that you look when you're using these words, the more you're going to draw this like love and care and virtual attention your way in the comment section and in your DMs. And it just really makes all of us question, are these people being real and honest when they use these words now?
Yeah. So then what do you think, like, I know this is a slight pivot, but not really. What would help people speak more clearly when they're using those words? Like, what do you think would give them clarity to use the right words?
Well, this sounds very elementary school, but thinking before you speak.
Wild.
What might
Don't
happen
get
if
crazy.
I use this word? What might happen if I say this thing?
I agree.
So I think just thinking, like pause before you do something. It sounds like something we learn very early in life, but I don't think a lot of people go through the rest of their lives applying these types of things.
Well, and I can't remember who said this, but I bring it up a lot at work. In the phrase is all meaningful life is found in the pause between stimuli and response. There's peace. And the basic idea of it is like there's so much opportunity in the moment between when you have something happen to you or something's happening in life that made you uncomfortable or even makes you feel unsafe. This has been one of the changes when I said there's a lot that's changed in a decade. One of those changes is it's very uncommon at this point for me in my office to hear people talk through the lens of personal responsibility. Everything's always happening to everyone.
Well, when you do pause and you are a patient person and you've kind of practiced using that muscle, you come out the bigger person and you're a lot stronger than you think if you're the one pausing and not saying anything because you're sitting back being very careful and intentional with your words, and that shows good character in my opinion.
Yeah, more often than not, I do think that's the case.
Yeah.
And I wonder, what I think on my mind a lot of the time, like when I heard that last night from Erica, it's like that's just such a good distinction to recognize there's a huge difference between being uncomfortable and unsafe.
Yeah.
And most of life is uncomfortable. And almost every good thing about it comes through uncomfortability.
Yeah.
Starting the conversation with the person you want to talk to, doing the
Right.
thing you're excited about, trying the gym when you haven't been there before, like going on the run. I don't know. I hate running, so that's a terrible idea. But for those of you that like running, more power to you. And if you think you might like running, go on the run. It'll be radically uncomfortable, but you're not unsafe. All the good parts of life are uncomfortable.
Yeah. What impressed
Before they're
me
good.
about also a housewife being on national TV is like at a reunion show like that, you're there to rehash a lot of really intense moments that you had
Yeah.
in the season prior. And so for her to still stand strong and true into what words mean, rather than like, okay, I'm on the couch. I have this 1 hour, this one moment to tell my story, to say my piece. A lot of those women do just go after like these other women with the worst words that they could use possible because they want to look good on TV.
Yeah,
So I feel like that spoke to who she is, and I really like that.
I agree.
But
So good. Well done, Erica,
yeah,
from afar.
I also, when I was going to London last year, I remember I was going on YouTube to like figure out the best places to go, the best way to go about being in a new country. I had never gone that far, and a lot of the subject to traveling by yourself, because I was going alone, was about safety. Like when you're going alone, here's what you should do. You should always do this. But then it was always like, if you're a woman, you especially should do this. But I'm like, at the end of the day, the best people and YouTube creators who were sharing their stories about this was it doesn't matter who you are and it doesn't matter where you're going. Everywhere can be unsafe.
What I like about what you're saying is that the world actually is unsafe, but it does not mean that you are always in an unsafe context, position, or circumstance. Like something bad could happen. That is a truth, but that doesn't mean something bad is happening.
Yeah,
And
it's sad that people had to make videos anyways to share, like, keep your head on a swivel. I did really love that phrase because no matter who you are, whether you're a man or a woman or you're alone or even in a group, you should always keep your eyes peeled when you're out and about because we should always be aware of our surroundings. But like you're saying, the world is unsafe, but it's also...
If we go through life mostly focusing on the fact that we could be unsafe, we're going to miss out on everything that makes it good.
Yes, it makes you worry through life rather than sitting back and enjoying it. It doesn't mean be so carefree that you're like throwing yourself into like situations that could put your life at risk, but it's just kind of find that balance of enjoy your life. Don't worry so much because worrying is like worshiping problems that don't exist yet.
Nailed it. But it's such a good phrase because at the end of the day, like, isn't it about like, sure, you need to be thoughtful, stay safe, confront danger, like when something is genuinely wrong, it should be called out. But when something is uncomfortable, part of life is learning to deal with it.
Life is uncomfortable.
The whole thing.
Yes.
Literally the whole thing is uncomfortable. But that's what makes it so good, is like, if you're going to spend life either confronting or avoiding what's uncomfortable, you're going to miss out on what's making it beautiful.
Exactly. Life is uncomfortable. It is not inevitably unsafe.
Nope.
It is only unsafe until something happens that is unsafe.
Yeah. And all good things are a risk anyway. So be thoughtful and take the risk.
I think we should let ourselves be uncomfortable. Just like you said, running.
Yeah.
No one,
Ugh.
a lot of people really don't like running. It's just what you get from pushing yourself and challenging yourself to do something that is uncomfortable.
What?
So, yeah, just learn the differences between very powerful words.
Agreed.
They're common words and they're used very easily, but it doesn't mean that you're using them in the right context. So, just to make sure that you're aware of.
Just to make sure you're aware. We're here to make sure that you are aware that those words are not synonyms.
So,
unsafe and uncomfortable, not the same thing.
Not the same, guys. All right. Episode 3, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Follow Max at Real with Maxwell on Instagram. Follow me, Justin, at Justin_Tucker. And then follow our podcast on Instagram at call.yourtherapist. And feel free to DM us or email us hello@callyourtherapistpodcast.com.
You're not broken, just a little overwhelmed. Take a breath, hit the number, let somebody help. Call your therapist, it's alright, it's alright. Call your therapist, take your time, take your time. Little talk, little truth, little kindness, yeah, call your therapist.